Hello, my name is Nico van Spijker and I'm one of the instructors at the MR Well Academy. Today I'm going to take you in 7 blocks through the IWCF practical assessment. In block number 1 we're going to get ready for drilling. We're going to line up the standpipe manifold, the choke manifold, the choke position. We're going to check the BOP, we're going to line up the BOP. We're going to check our circulating system and we're going to take the SCRs. Before we start drilling, we need to line up our equipment. I'm in front of the standpipe manifold and we're going to line up, in our situation, 3 pumps to standpipe number 1. Normally the driller needs to line up the manifold and then afterwards the supervisor will check the lineup. During the assessment we do understand this is not your rig. I'm not allowed to help you, but if you're looking for something you can't find it, you can always ask me. So looking at this manifold, you got pump 1 and 3 coming up over here. So these valves are open all the way to standpipe number 1 and pump number 2 on the other side is lined up through the top side of the standpipe manifold up to standpipe number 1. What we don't need should be closed, like the bleed off valve. It's closed, I checked already before. Standpipe number 2, it's closed. There's some other valves going to the kill line or to the standpipe, the choke manifold. It's not needed at the moment, so should be closed. Pump 1, 2 and 3 lined up to standpipe number 1. And for me it's ready to go. I'm standing in front of the choke manifold, and with this manifold we do have 2 remote chokes, remote choke 1, remote choke number 2. We also do have 2 manual chokes. I'm going to line up to use remote choke number 1. So when we start drilling, I'm going to line up for the hard shut-in. That means the choke should be closed, and for that we do have the remote choke panel. And there's the position indicator. Choke number 1, it's half open. It should be closed for the hard shut-in. So I'm just going to close it all the way. So according to this position indicator, the remote choke is closed. I'm also going to check for choke number 2, just in case I need choke number 2, and that's closed. So, going back to the manifold, what I don't need should be closed. So I can do a quick check. The manual choke should be closed. All the valves, everything is closed, closed, closed. Everything is closed except for the valve to the choke line. So if I do shut in the well and open my SCR, I want to record pressures, and I need that sensor over here, the pressure gauge. So this valve should be open. But we did close the choke, but there's no guarantee it's holding pressure. It's not pressure tested. It's not a sealing device. So we always close a valve upstream or downstream of the choke. And in this case, I closed the valve upstream. The valve downstream is still open, and the valve after that to the mud gas separators is also open. So, choke manifold, chokes are closed. And the only valve open at this moment is my valve in between my BOP and my pressure gauge, and the valves downstream of my choke. And it's ready for drilling. I'm at the moment in front of the BOP panel, the service BOP. And before we start drilling, first of all we need to check the position of the rams and the anglers, SCRs. And we need to check the pressures in the hydraulic control system. So first of all, looking at the light, the angler is open, the pipe ram is open, the blind ram is open. There is a hydraulic valve on the kill line, it's closed, and there is the SCR on the choke line. Hey, that one is open. And when we start drilling, the SCR should be closed. So I will close it in a minute. And the bottom pipe ram is also open. Looking at the pressures, there should be maximum 3000 psi in my accumulator. Minimum 2700. At 90% of 3000 the pumps would start running. So it's 2900 psi, I'm happy with that. My manifold pressure 1500 psi, I'm 100% exactly what it should be. The handler at the moment is around 1400 psi. That's within the range. For the handler there's a range between 5 and 1500 depending on the pipe size, depending on the type of handler. If needed I can adjust it here from this panel. And finally the air pressure, 120 psi. That's also good. Minimum 75, maximum normally 125. So all the pressures are okay. The only thing I still need to do is close the hydraulic valve on the choke line. I first want to reset my gallon counter and then push the master valve and close the choke line. Before I push it, I already put my eye on my manifold pressure, because as soon as the light goes from green to red, the pressure should drop. There's a small drop and it went up again, so that's a good indication, and the light is red. The gallon counter was correct, so the BOP is lined up. So we did check the standpipe manifold, we checked the choke manifolds, we checked the BOP, the pressures, the position of the rams, handler. So finally we need to check our circulating system, and on this simulator I do have a touch screen, and I first go to mud alignment. Here we do see the active tank. There's 10.5 pounds per gallon mud in there and the suction valve is open, and at this moment pump 1, 2 and 3 are lined up to the active tank. Pretty simple system. On the other side, when we start circulating, the returns will come up through the BOP, up the riser, the bell nipple, through the flow line. And from the flow line it goes back to your same active tank. So we're sucking from this tank and the returns are going to the tank. And of course in between there will be the shakers and the mud treatment equipment. So we're lined up from the riser to the flow line back to the active tank. If you want to do a flow check, or when we start tripping, I can line up my trip tank. I just click on this one, opens the valve to the trip tank, and that one closes. So also for flow checking, or after shutting in your BOP, when you do have a kick, you can line up your trip tank and see if the well is flowing or if the BOP is leaking. There is a trip tank pump and I have to start it on my panel. I will show you later on. So for now I'm going to line up for circulating over my active tank. And if needed I can use the trip tank. There's already more than 9 barrels of mud in the trip tank. Going back to my main menu, there's my standpipe manifold we just lined up, and the choke manifold. When we start drilling, we also have these trend lines, like you would use on the rig for drilling or for well control, and you're allowed to use it. Going back to the main menu, and it looks like we're almost ready. There's only one thing to do, and it's setting the alarms and taking SCRs. Before we start drilling, we need to take the SCRs, or your dynamic pressure loss. We're going to take SCRs with 2 pumps at 2 different rates, and normally the rates used are 30 strokes and 40 strokes per minute. Some wells maybe 20 and 30, but today we're going to take SCRs, a slow circulating rate with 30 and 40 strokes per minute. So first I'm going to start pumping slowly. I can operate it over here. Pump number 1, and over there on my griller's panel I can see how fast I'm pumping. So slowly I'm going to start pumping. There's no returns yet. My flow indicator over here. Now it starts moving. That means I do have circulation. The mud is moving around. I'm pumping mud down the drill string and there are returns coming up through the flow line. And I'm slowly increasing the pump rate to 30 strokes per minute. 30 strokes per minute. And it takes some time for the pressure to build up and the flow to stabilize. So what we're doing now, we're pumping with 30 strokes per minute down the string, and the returns are going up the endless through the flow line back to your shakers, back to your active tank. And to record these pressures we're going to use the pressure gauge on the choke panel, because that's the panel we're going to use when we do have a kick to control the well, to remove the influx and pump the kill mud. So we're going to have a look at the choke panel pressure gauge. And I can make a graph. Pump 1, pump 2, 30 strokes, 40 strokes. So now I'm pumping 30 strokes per minute with pump number 1, and my pump pressure at the moment is 157 psi. And I'm going to do exactly the same for 40 strokes, and I'm going to do exactly the same from pump number 2, 30 and 40.